When you have questions, we're going to have to ask that you raise your hand and we'll bring you the microphone, this microphone right here. Because if you're talking to the mic, then when you're listening to the video, or the students who aren't here listening to the video, they'll hear the questions and the answers. You know how frustrating it is sometimes when you hear this muffled in the back of the room and somebody says, "That's right, do it that way." And you're like, "Oh God, I wish I knew what that way was." So this is a little awkward at times, and it's not spontaneous, and it's gonna feel like, "Oh yeah, I gotta get the mic," but that's to benefit everybody. So with that, and restrooms are down the hall this way should you need that. Chris and Rick, our videographers here this evening. We're going to start off here, and Alicia, take it away.
Great. Hi, everyone. So it's good to see you here, a face-to-face class, which is a little unusual, but it is a really nice change. So I want to let everybody know we had a great time on Saturday, and the tacos were great. Next time we have a gathering will probably be at the end of the cohort. That'll be the next formal gathering, which will probably be at my house, and we've already had the request for the tacos. So I will make sure we have tacos again. I wanted to ask you, I sent out an email about earlier this week, I think it was Tuesday, about the survey. So if you have not filled out the online survey, it's going over your classes for first semester. Please do so. I put the link on the Google Plus environment as well. So you'll find it there. I also sent the email with the direct link. It's in SurveyMonkey. So I would appreciate it. We really value your feedback, and Dr. Ward and I will definitely take suggestions and look at them and look to see how we can always improve the program. So thank you so much. Any questions for me before I sit back and just learn a little bit about leadership? No? Okay, thank you.
We okay sound-wise? Hello. Thanks for coming, and I wanted to welcome you. And I don't use the word welcome lightly. You'll learn that from what we read about and talk about over the course of the semester. Welcome is a very important part and process to belong. And I welcome this cohort, and I'm honored and as Bill is, to be on this part of the journey with you. I thought that this discussion is going to be a little different than the format that we take for the rest of the semester, and whether you're virtually here or here live, we're trying to set up both, provide you content as well as the context of how we organize the class, and hopefully we'll accomplish that by the end of today, and therefore some of the things that I hope you'll be able to accomplish by the end of this class are you'll be able to articulate how visionary leadership is related to the professional standards. You'll be able to look at the 3 modules that we're using to organize this course and our study of leadership. You'll be able to articulate how the expected readings and activities and posts need to be completed for next week, what our expectations are for week 2. You'll be able to articulate what your sphere of influence, start thinking about what your sphere of influence is, in fact, what is a sphere of influence, and how that can begin to expand. And finally, at the end of class tonight, or the viewing of it, each student will be able to indicate the accomplishments of meeting the 3 stated purposes above by either clapping or kissing their computers or writing a damning email. So you have all 3 of those choices. As Bill already introduced us, but there's Bill and I have been excited to put together this online version of educational leadership, visionary leadership, and we also are really thankful that one of your classmates, Alex Gonzalez, has been so helpful in helping us organize the class from a technical perspective, as well as to get some sort of give us a perspective to some of the ways you've been looking at your learning and the other parts of the program, so we can create some consistency. So thank you, Alex. You did some reading before tonight. Part of that was related to the professional standards that you read about in green. And he talked about all the professional standards associated with school leadership, and he unpacked the ISLAC, which are the national standards for leadership development. And the book that he writes that we'll be reading is based on the ISLAC standards. I hope you got a good sense of and started thinking about why would we have professional standards for educational leaders. We're going to be looking at those standards, and every competency and module in the class is attached to those standards, so we'll be referring back to them. If you've had a chance to look at the syllabus, you know they're already, the course is aligned to the 4 major standards. But we didn't align them to the ISLAC standards because, as we wrote you in the opening syllabus, we aligned them to the new CAPE standards, which are the California Administrative Professional Expectations. And so we'll start to, over the next few weeks, unwrap and unpackage what those standards are. But basically, there's a standard that has to do with visionary leadership, and there's several expectations associated with that, about 4. There's a standard that has to do with instructional leadership. There's about 4 CAPE standards associated with that. There are 2 other areas of standards that I think are related to instructional leadership. School improvement leadership, there's a set of professional standards for school leaders to look at in terms of their ability to lead school improvement efforts, and another set of standards related to leaders' ability to support professional learning and growth. But I consider that largely under the leadership, instructional leadership standard. There's a set of instructional standards related to systems leadership, organizational leadership, management of buildings, and finally there's a set of instructional leadership standards associated with community leadership. These make up the bulk of the curriculum associated with what, in the educational leadership credential, we're responsible for developing our program around, and what our field is looking at in terms of the development and enhancement of people who are working on their school leadership, either in their official capacity or as teacher leaders. As a result, at San Diego State, we actually have built our entire leadership credential program around these standards. And I'm excited because the first of those is the visionary leadership, because I believe that all of the other things can't really be fully developed and implemented and articulated effectively if you don't have the visionary leadership piece. So we're going to look at visionary leadership as the core of this class, but it does relate to instructional leadership, it does relate to systems and organizational leadership, and it does relate to community leadership. So as we get into and explore visionary leadership is about what are the skills, what's the knowledge, what's your disposition attitude towards helping build an effective school and a school program. And the way we've organized and thought about this in this class is visionary leadership is somewhat based on how you behave, because people are going to look at your leadership and their willingness to work with you and be led with you and collaborate with you based on how you behave, not just based on what you say. So we're going to be looking at where part of visionary leadership is your ability to design and construct an effective school environment. So that's the second piece of what we think is really important in visionary leadership as we've organized the class. And finally, what you stand for. And so if we go back to those 3 things, when we think about how you behave, that comes down to personal and interpersonal habits. How you behave and how you're disciplined in your own world, personally, and how you behave as you interact with other people interpersonally. As it relates to what you stand for, that's going to be, we're going to talk about that in terms of your leadership platform, the things you can stand on and move from. And finally, as we look at how to design and construct an effective environment, we're going to look at culture and the culture of achievement. So when you look at those 3 things and how they relate to visionary leadership, the course is really built around 3 modules. Module 1 is going to be a module about personal and interpersonal habits. And part of what we do every week is going to be focusing on that. At the same time, we're going to have a concurrent module that is always going to focus on what we do, how we think about building a culture that's more effectively supporting leadership in a school. And finally, module 3, which is the platform, the signature assignment for this course. All of your work is going to go to a final product your leadership platform will be Module 3. And so every week, and as Bill goes through the syllabus in a technological way, and I'll go through it in a content way, every week, all 3 of those modules are going to be dealt with. We're going to work on all 3 of those things. They're all related to visionary leadership, but rather than finishing a module and moving to another module in a consecutive fashion, we're going to be working all 3 of these areas in a concurrent fashion. Part of today is to help you understand that so it's not as complex as it might look when you just look at it on the piece of paper. So let's start with the riddle. The riddle is, who am I? The riddle goes, I am your constant companion. I am your greatest helper or heaviest burden. I will push you onward or drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command. Half of the things you do, you just as well as turn over to me, and I will be able to do them quickly and correctly. I am easily managed. You must merely be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want me to something done, and after a few lessons, I'll do it automatically. I am also the servant of great individuals and, alas, of all failures as well. Those who are great, I have made great. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I am not a machine, though I work with the precision of a machine plus the intelligence of a human. You may run me for profit or run me for ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me, train me, be firm with me, and I will place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Who am I? Guesses? I know all you in virtual land have the answer as shouting at the computer. Anyone here? Okay. Well, since nobody else knows it, you can give it away. It's a, and she's got laryngitis. It doesn't matter if she has a microphone with her or not. Amy suggested, because she's read the material, the book ahead of time, it's a habit. So now go back and think about the term habit and your own habits, and think about them in terms of this riddle. I'm your greatest companion. I'm your greatest helper or heaviest burden. I'll push you onward or drag you down. I'm completely at your command. Half the things you do, you just turn over to me. I'll do them quickly and efficiently. I'm easily managed. You just have to be firm with me, right? Show me exactly how you want things done. After a few lessons, I'll do them very automatically. I'm the servant of all great individuals and of all failures as well. Those who are great, I've made great. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I'm not a machine. I work with the precision of a machine plus the intelligence of a human. Run me for profit or run me for ruin, it makes no difference. Take me, train me, be firm with me. I'll place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, I will destroy you. So habits, we oftentimes think about in a negative context. We think about them as smoking or as eating too much. But we also have positive habits. Our exercise routines, our intellectual investment in ourselves, these are habits too. So when we're going to look at habits from this course, we're going to look at the same habits everybody else looks at, but we're going to look at it from the lens of your leadership development. How are these habits portrayed in people who effectively help others get the most out of what a school can be? And as a baseline for that, or as a context and text for that, we're going to use Covey's 7 Habits as something that, for those of you who have learned them, it's a good review. For those of you who have just heard about them and haven't really read them, you'll have a good understanding what the habits are by the end of the program and their application to you and your development as a leader. Habits, as Hovey talks about, really concern 3 things. And if you remember when I started the class, we talked about leadership is about skills, about knowledge, and about disposition. Covey talks about it very similar. He says that a habit is the intersection between skills, knowledge, and attitude. Knowledge of what to do, skills of how to do it, and attitude of why to do it. And you can't get anything done, you can't develop a habit unless you have all 3 of those things. I mean, there's lots of us, we know what to do, we just don't do it, right? But now we know what to do we have the skill to do it? So we know what to do, but we haven't learned the skills to do it. And once we know what to do and we have the ability to do it, do we choose to do it? So that's where the notion of habit is. All three of these things to come together. You have to have the knowledge, you have to have the skill, and you have to have the discipline. When you start thinking about your own leadership platform and the development of it, and who you are as a teacher leader and as a school leader, and eventually if you move on through the credential program to look at that in a more formal sense, start thinking, what is leadership? How do you define leadership? Hopefully when you started reading the first chapter of the book, you started thinking about not just context, but what is a leader, and am I one of those? And what's your definition of leadership? My definition of leadership is real simple. I learned it from a colleague, and leadership is the next thing you do. Now, if you recognize that phrase, the next thing you do, it doesn't mean leadership is when a superintendent, I didn't say that. Leadership is when a principal, I didn't say that. Leadership is the next thing you do, and it's something we can expect anyone to exercise from any chair they sit in. Now, as a leader, or somebody who is increasing their sphere of influence over others, leadership in the next thing you do is noticed, it's appreciated, it's modeling what you're expecting other people to accomplish. So a visionary leader, that's what I'm asking you to do. Yes?
Quick question on the two, the question of the two slides before, you had mentioned the Franklin Covey of the 7 Habits. You had attitude and the other two words, I wasn't sure what they were, but is that the see, do, get?
The see, do, get will come a little later. I'll show you that. It's mixed into the see, do, get. See is the way you look at something, do is how you're going to respond to it, and get is the results you get. So it's related to that, but it's a little bit different. Good. So this class is about exploring your role as a visionary leader. And you're going to yourself, are you saying, you're thinking to yourself, I'm ready to have my voice heard? I'm ready to influence others? Are you saying, I'm ready to stand out in a crowd? Are you saying, I'm ready to lead? Is that what you're saying, Pumpian? Are you kidding me? The confidence to start looking at these issues and taking the next bold step to being more influential with the people you work around, it starts out as a confidence piece. It starts out as asking these questions, and once you say, are you kidding me? And the answer is no, you wouldn't be here if there wasn't some inkling in you that this is the next step in your journey as a professional. So about how do you make the leap? And in this class, the signature assignment, completing that leadership platform, is going to be your opportunity to read things, to do things, to think about and reflect on things, and eventually come together with a platform that says what's important to you, why is it important to you. And I hope that some of you are going to have a chance to spend time reflecting on things you've never really spent that much time reflecting on. So we talked about skills, knowledge, and disposition. We're going to talk about those from a leadership perspective. And your leadership platform starts off with a very simple questions and statements. What do I believe? What do I believe about kids? What do I believe about education? What's really important to me? And not only can you write that, but can you say it? If you got in the elevator with the superintendent of the district and said, what do you think is happening in education? Would you be able to comfortably rely on that platform to say, this is what I believe about kids, or this is what I believe about what we should be doing? You should be able to do that in 30 seconds, and 3 minutes, and 3 hours, and 3 weeks. It's the same answer, just expanded differently. So what do you believe, and why do you believe it about kids and education and your role in it? What are your non-negotiables? What are the things you just won't give away? And how are those things portrayed and articulated in a way that's positive and supportive? How do you take what you've done thus far and convince yourself and others that you are on a platform that leads to the next step of your leadership? What is your leadership style? And how does that style align with the standards we're going to read about? And can you credibly align your beliefs and your practical knowledge with your issues and your experience? So first, you believe you're a leader, and second, you can credibly convince others of the same. So that's going to be in your platform. It's going to be the last thing you turn in. But don't worry, because over the course of the entire semester, we're going to incrementally build these pieces of the platform. So by the time you're ready to write your platform, you'll have most of the fodder, most of the content and information ready to organize and present. And then you're going to ask yourself, is your platform credible? Will people perceive it as authentic? Do you have the skills and knowledge and disposition to take on what you write? Can you communicate that platform not only in writing, but when others ask you a simple question, can you respond without fluttering? Who do you need to convince first that this platform is authentic? Well, to be honest, yourselves. And then how do you convince everybody else? So that's 1/3 of the class. It's based on the signature assignment of creating the platform. Every week you're going to be submitting blog posts related to that, and we're going to talk about the specifics of that in a little while. Your platform has to develop with depth and substance through learning, reflection, and experience. So everything we do this semester, you're going to be pulling into that. And leadership styles and standards, you're going to get a lot of that from Green's book. You're going to, as you read Green's book, especially chapters 2 and 3, you're going to start pulling in which of these descriptions reflect my style, the way I would like to be perceived, the leaders I've worked with and who I admire and who I don't, and is that my style? Your maturity, professional maturity as a leader, how you create culture, how you communicate your platform effectively, thereby expanding your sphere of influence. My what? Your sphere of influence. And your sphere of influence is who do you have a strong ability to affect in the way they think, the way they behave, and the way they act? Well, first of all, you. I mean, if you can't control your own sphere of influence and how you act, your ability to affect positively others is very limited. And as very effective teachers, most of you already know that as it relates to your performance in classrooms. But as you affect and build your own leadership skills and look at them and develop them, your ability to expand your influence beyond the classroom to other teachers, to system-wide issues expand. And hopefully some of the things, the tools we'll build this semester, things we'll reflect on, experiences you'll have, the activities hopefully we're going to suggest you do and you initiate on your own will be the sort of things that will expand your sphere of influence to be in a more effective position to have others work with you effectively to make your school more effective. Your sphere of influence starts with you, extends to your family, and then your job and your community. And so where are you on that? And what's it going to take for the people who don't feel comfortable working with you, who aren't working with you, to say that's somebody I want to work with. That's somebody I want to listen to. That's somebody I want to participate in making the school better with. So sphere of influence is a huge part of what we're going to look at as it relates to how your platform positions you to be more influential. The leadership maturity scale that Covey talks about, we're going to talk about in terms of leadership, I'm going to break it down for you real simply. At the bottom of the maturity scale, and it's not like you're always on the top and always on the bottom. In a new situation, you start over again and everything. But the least mature people in a social context, in this case in leadership context, are people who are totally dependent. I don't know what to do. Do it for me. Show me what to do. It's like, is a student teacher more or less dependent than a master teacher? Obviously more. So a dependent person on a leadership maturity scale is not very sure of what to do or how to do it, and relies heavily on others to get anything done. There's things we go through in our own profession, in our own classroom, in our own family, in our own development and leadership of the school where we start moving from less reliance on other people to get things done. I know how to do it now. I can do that. Whether it's a specific thing or a big thing, I'm getting to where I don't have, if you don't come in tomorrow, I can get it done. And if you think about, again, the development of a student teacher, we move slowly and meticulously through this process. It's the same thing through your leadership development. The highest level of maturity Covey talks about is interdependence. Although I can do it myself, I'm more effective in collaborating and doing things with other people. More resources, more ideas, more power in working with others. If none of you show up, and we're all going to work on a project on Saturday and none of you show up, I'll get it done. I'm not going to say, oh, nobody got it done, so I can't do my work. I'll get it done. But if other people come, the quality of our product, the buy-in for our product, the support for our product will be much greater. So this is how Covey looks at the maturity scale. And then what he does is he says, in order to move from dependence to independence, you have private victories. There's things you got to work on, we have to work on in our own selves. And those private victories are things that are about the way we behave before we worry about the way other people behave. And private victories are then followed by public victories, what we have to do with other people to move from a position of independence to interdependence. And so we're going to work through this process. Private victories are habits 1, 2, and 3 of the 7 habits. Public victories are habits 4, 5, and 6 of the 7 habits. The 8th habit's a surprise. And there's actually a 9th. But motivation gets you started, a habit keeps you going. So what are the things that we have to do in our own, as you look at your sphere of influence, how do we move up from, again, some of you are very independent, very interdependent. If you took a new job tomorrow, you go back to dependency in a lot of ways, right? The new rules, new procedures. So it's not a matter of you're always there, but you can get there faster as you develop some of these strengths. Iceberg, Covey talks about in terms of the stuff up here is the public habits, the stuff people see. But the guts of really leadership development are the habits that nobody sees. And he calls the first 3 habits character habits, the things that build in you a capacity that you feel strong enough for who you are and proud enough of who you are and independent enough of who you are that naturally people would want to work with you. Who wants to work with, on a major project, overly dependent people? Who wants to be led by an overly dependent person? So people who are independent attract people who say, I'd like to work with you because you'll get it done and I can work effectively with you. So character habits are the first 3 habits, and the second 3 habits are personality habits. The difference between character habits and personality habits is the difference between, you can go to buy a car and a good salesman will sell you the car because they got personality, know what to say, they know how to say it, they got charm, they got grace. But will you go back to that person for the second car? And if you go back to the person for the second car, it's likely that the things that he said and represented in himself were true. So when a leader comes to you or a teacher comes to you and says, look, I got a great idea, let's get this done, and it says all the right things and shows all the right things, and you go there because they sold the idea, but where's the follow-through? Where's the substance? Where's the support? Where's the resource? And if it's not there, if those character habits aren't there, the next time that leader comes to you and says, let's try this, you go, maybe not. Because that's where the credibility is. The credibility is down here. The salesmanship is up here. The salesmanship in long-term leadership means nothing without the character. So the first 3 habits is working on your character and how it's represented such that people want to work with you. Our is oftentimes that all of this is why there's so mistrust of leadership, of government, of others, because what people say is not followed by what people do. And if you really want to be a part of a team, a team where your leadership and your participation is well valued, you know it's not the first thing. It's the follow-through. It's the substance. It's the honesty. It's the dependability. Expanding your sphere of influence, moving from dependence to independence to interdependence, is about personal victories, the things that will get you and set you up for public victories. They're the first 3 habits. Interdependence is the thing we're working for. You can read this on your own. So I guess the first part of encouraging or expanding or facilitating your own leadership in this class is you're going to have to decide that you're willing to be the pebble that falls in, the ripple that creates other things to move. Be the change you want to see in others. So if this class is about thinking about leadership, you're going to reflect, and you're going to reflect often. I mean, I would take time driving home tonight, sometime this week. What is leadership to me? Did that make sense? Would I say it a different way? Who am I as a leader? You have to start reflecting. It's the most valuable thing leaders do, is they reflect. Next most valuable thing leaders do is they journal a lot. They capture, they diary, think about what they're trying to do, what they've done. So this course is developed in 3 modules. And each week there'll be readings, as Bill will go through the details. There'll be readings and assignments and screencasts organized by each of those modules. You'll see the syllabus is set up. You'll see the Blackboard set up that way. You'll see all the activities are set up that way. Leadership Habits is Module 1. Creating Culture of Achievement is habit number 2. And your leadership platform is number 3. Module 1. Leadership habits. You're going to learn and demonstrate the habits of highly effective leaders and learners. The typical week format, and it changes a little bit, but again, when you see the way Bill goes through the syllabus, you're going to watch a habits screencast. Today is replacing those screencasts, but you're going to watch 3 separate screencasts instead of one large one like today. You're going to probably post a required reflection regarding each module. It will say in there. You're going to complete a series of teaching and practice activities for this module. You're going to post to a collegial partner. We're going to talk about that. And habits, the habits module is going to be worth about 25% of your grade. Module 2 is going to be worth another 25% of your grade, and this is going to be about creating the culture of achievement. And every week, again, you're going to watch a screencast. You're going to read, and you're going to reflect and post a reflection. And Fisher and Fry and Pumpian will be used as the text for that. And Module 3, as I said before, is your signature assignment, worth another 25%. And every week we're going to be working on posts that create a framework for eventually what will become your platform. And you just have to trust us that as we move through the process, you're not going to have to think about organizing the platform. You're just going to have to think about what makes that platform unique to you. So I wanted to illustrate a little bit the weekly format broken by module by giving you a little more content on each module. These 3 represent our 3 modules. Smile. Okay. And each module is going to be in your mind. There's stuff I'm going to do before I see the screencast, and then I'm going to see the screencast and see what's posted in terms of information online. And there's stuff I'm going to do between that screencast and the next screencast I see. And that's going to be there for every module. So for example, if you were seeing Module 1, Habits, as a screencast, it might go something like this. In fact, it does. Leadership Habits. As you remember from talking a little while ago, we talked about the maturity scale, the leadership maturity scale, and where we are on that. And in order to move from dependence to independence, we need private victories. In order to have private victories, we have to work through 3 habits. And today we're going to learn habit number 1. Habit number 1, personal victories, is about personal vision. It's about personal leadership. It's about personal management. It's kind of like the Man in the Mirror poem, which you can't start by looking at yourself. So habit number 1, stand up in front of your computer, stand up here. I'm going to give you every way of trying to remember these habits and understand them. Habit number 1 is be proactive. Do it together. Be proactive. Okay? So let's talk about what that means. Have a seat. Being proactive means you take control for everything you can take control of. It's about not reacting that the situation's bad because of what you've done. I can't get it done because you didn't do it. It's about taking responsibility. Being proactive means you don't deny your genetics or your upbringing, but you see them as influences. You are free to choose the next thing you do. That's what being proactive is. You're free to choose the next thing you do. You can't control what you did, you can't control what you did, you can't control what she did, or what she'll do next. All you can do is the next thing you do. And if you make a wise choice, it's most likely the situation will improve. And if you make a wise choice, it's most likely other people will recognize that the choices you made in those situations make the situation better, and in which case you expand your sphere of influence. So being proactive means you gain control over circumstances rather than being controlled by them. You move from a reactive person to a proactive person. The fire's there, you got to put it out. Being proactive means, and this is the see-do paradigm, you see yourself as responsible for your choices. You don't control my choices, I control my choices. And if I see the world that way, then the way I act is I choose to act, not react. I'm going to add to the situation, I'm going to improve the situation, I'm not going to make the situation worse, I'm not going to blame the situation. And if I act that way, I'm going to get more positive results. If I have more positive results, I'm going to increase my influence. It's a very simple paradigm. And this see, do, get paradigm, as was suggested, is related to every habit. It's kind of way how I look at the world, how I act as a result of how I look at the world, and the likelihood that my results may be more positive and influential than if I looked at the world differently and therefore acted differently. Make sense? Be proactive. Being proactive means you take responsibility, your ability to choose your response. The response is a product of your own decisions based on your own values. In some of the 7 Habits of Highly Successful Teens, they talk about the notion that we see a stimulus and we respond. I mean, so a dog walks in and there's meat on the table and nobody's around, the dog's going to eat the meat. We walk in and you see something on the table, a wallet, and we don't necessarily just put it in our pocket. We have other choices. What can I do here? What's the responsible thing to do here? What do I believe is an important thing to do here? So in 7 Habits of Highly Successful Teens, they talk about teaching kids the pause button. That something happened before you act, pause. What are my choices here? Instead of just reacting innately. And that's part of the discipline. Being reactive is blaming, is negative. I'm not born that way. I'm not built that way. It's his fault. It's her fault. She can't do it. He can't do it. I'm always the victim. If you're always the victim, you're totally dependent, right? You're back in the bottom of the social maturity scale, because if you're totally the victim, always the victim, that means everybody else is controlling you. You can't get to a place of independence till you say, I have the ability to act, regardless of how difficult the situation or the context of it is. So there's a stimulus, you have a freedom to choose, that's what makes us human, and the response will in fact impact the situation in enormous ways. Think about the leaders you respect, think about when you've been in a very effective leadership role. It's this notion that when something happens, how do you act and what's the result of that? And part of that action is based on your awareness, your independence, your will, your imagination, your conscience. I love having the wait and see attitude. Here's to mediocrity. What we do repeatedly, we are what we do repeatedly, and that's why habits are so important. If you practice these habits with discipline on a regular basis, there is a better chance you're going to show excellence as one of them. When are you going to show some initiative, Finley? When you tell me what to do, sir. So you have habit. Sonia Friedman wrote something really interesting, and she said you only have control over 3 things. I mean, when you think about how big the world is, you go, geez, the world's huge. I only get control over 3 things, but here are the 3 things. You have control over what you think. If you choose to be proactive. Nobody can control what you think. You have control over what you say, unless you're under extreme duress, which nobody should be in a school context. And you have control over what you behave. Those are the only things we really control. You can't control what I think. You can't control what I say. You can't control what I do. Only what you think and what you say and what you do. But, as teachers know, effectively, how we think and what we say and how we behave as teachers affect the way kids start thinking, and kids start behaving, and kids start talking. And the same thing is true as you develop the collective efficacy of the team of adults you work with in a school. To make change in your life, you recognize that these are gifts, the most powerful tools you have, the only three tools you have, and using them more effectively is part of your leadership habits and your leadership style. And so you start thinking about what happened today, what happened last week, what's happening in the school, what's the drama, what's the challenge, what role am I playing in it, what role could I play in it, how could I add value to the situation rather than blame somebody else because it didn't get done. Habit 1 is learn it, live it, and teach it. And so if you were seeing this as a screencast, it might not be any longer than this. It will be one of the 3 that will be posted. Week 2 will be habit 2, obviously. And before then, you'll also, on your agenda, on your curriculum, you'll see there's things I have to do now that I've seen the screencast before the next screencast. So before January 29th, you're going to use the screencast in the posted materials, because we put a lot of materials online for week 1 to read. Use that as a basis, as a guide for the assignments and activities you're going to do over the course of the week. You know, for example, if you've read week 1, that you're going to be teaching habits to a targeted group, right? So now you have habit 1 to teach. Who am I to teach? When I'm going to teach them that? What are going to be the results of that? How I'm going to think about habit 1 as it relates to my leadership and the commitments I make, and the next things I need to do become stronger and more effective to move a little bit more from my dependence as a leader to my independence as a leader. And that becomes your first blog post. And both Adam and Bill will tell you how and where those will get posted. And finally, as it relates to habit 1, and it will typically be the case, there's no assigned reading. Habit 1 won't have a book because we'll cover most of the materials in screencast. I'll give you some YouTubes to see every once in a while. I encourage you, if you work with young kids, look at the Leadership in Me as a book that you can use with kids that are based on the 7 habits, teens, highly effective teens. Yes?
I'm actually starting that book next week for my 6th graders.
Fantastic. The comment was there's teachers that are beginning to use the book in their own class. And I think the idea of developing common language and common purpose and reference points as kids work on this stuff is it will be very rewarding to you, and you'll have to report back to us how that goes. And I think it can fit right into this assignment for you, so that's great. Then you would see on the syllabus the next module, and that module will also have a screencast, and will also have things you've done before to get ready to see that screencast, and things you'll do afterwards. But as it relates to module 2 for this week, I have no information to share with you. So the first time that you'll see a screencast regarding culture will be week 2. But before you see that screencast next week, you're going to read all the way through chapter 2. You've already read through chapter 1 for tonight. So when I share with you the screencast next week, I'll assume that that information is good background information for the conversation we have. And then finally, there are no, although there will be almost every week in the future, there'll be no culture posts between this week and next week for you to post, even though Bill and Alex will show you where to post those things. What is the platform is Module 3. And Module 3 is going to be related to, again, if this was the screencast of Module 3, and it is, how do you communicate what your platform is, what your basic beliefs are, what your basic experiences, how you put your beliefs and experience together to the style leader that you want to be, and how does that relate to the experiences you've currently had to show that you understand the relationship between an idea and an example of an idea. What's the connection between the platform and your character and your personality, the iceberg? I would encourage you to take some time just to think and sit back and think. If this was a totally live class, we do it now, but do it on your own. So why did you become an educator? Maybe it's good to remind yourself every once in a while of that. Write it down, look at it. Is this who I still am? Did I lose sight of that? Do I have a more mature version of that now? Do I need to maybe put this in my purse or wallet and on those tough days open it up and read it again? that notion of why you became an educator is foundational, because someday somebody's going to want to know, do I want to work with you? Well, I got to have some idea that you're here for the right reasons. I want to be a part of your team. So part of that's going to be what we're going to be talking about and building into our platform. So the two things that I want you to practice working on this next week is I want you to spend some time writing what I believe about children and their education. And I want you to I want you to draft it, write it out. Just write it out. Not technical, don't reference it, don't use research. Just what do I believe about kids and their education? And then have your significant other or your co-teacher or a friend say, what do you believe about education and kids? And practice saying it. And practice getting through mumbling it out. And practice through, let me start over again. Because you're going to have to be comfortable. Nobody will ever read your platform but Bill and I. But everybody's going to hear your platform every day of your career. So your ability to articulate it, writing it gives you a chance to think about it and put it together and organize it logically, but to draw on it when you have a job interview, or draw on it when the press calls, or draw on it when you're talking to a parent group for the first time and you get asked a question, that's where there won't be a question that comes up, an issue that doesn't come up that you won't draw from your platform as a coherent, succinct, fundamental way of, this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is how we're going to deal with this. And then you're going to write, is education a preparatory experience? And what's the preparation for? So I want you to draft that, say it to somebody else, practice saying it out loud, work on that, saying it and articulating it, write it again, clean it up, and then once you've drafted those two pieces, you're going to actually post your platform belief in a blog for next week, and you're going to write in about 125 words. If it's 180, we're not going to eliminate it. If it's 3 words, it's too pithy. But we're just kind of giving you a target so you have an idea about how many words is going to be associated with your belief statement. But you're going to sit down and you're going to write, and you're going to post in a blog, and Alex and Bill are going to show you where and how. This is what I believe about children, their education, and its preparatory nature. And that will be the introduction eventually to what your platform is. Because why would I care about anything you do if I don't know what you think about kids? I don't understand its attachment to the purpose of education. So, Module 3 for next week, you're going to review the Week 1 posted materials because there's a lot there and a lot of information to share with you. You're going to read Green Chapter 2. You're going to read Waters Chapter 21, 26. So next week when we talk about the screencast, on the screencast about your platform, I'm going to consider when we start getting into this stuff that you have some of that as background knowledge. And then you're going to think about, you're going to write these 2 drafts. You're going to put them together into a nice paragraph that talks about your belief about children and the preparatory nature of education. And then you're going to ask others to drill you on it so you go from uncomfortable to comfortable. And what you'll find is at the end of the semester, you go, it used to be so uncomfortable for me to answer that question. It's one thing to think about, okay, in 10 minutes I'm going to go in, this is what I'm going to say. It's another thing to get asked the question and say it. And what you're going to realize, you get asked, that happens all day long in the classroom. But when you get asked something like this, you just kind of freeze up a little bit. So it's practice. It's a habit. So be proactive. Model the way in your sphere of influence over this next week. Trust yourself in the ripple. Reflect and have a great week. And so I have a question now. Are you more comfortable articulating visionary leadership as it relates to professional standards? First thing we talked about are the 3 modules that will be used to organize the course in our study of leadership. Do you know what they are? Do you have some idea how the readings and activities and posts will be responsible for each week from the following week? And we'll go into that in more detail in the second half of this conversation. Are you starting to get an idea of this notion of sphere of influence? You're thinking about what it is and what it means to you and where your sphere of influence is now, where you might like to see it in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years? If you feel we've accomplished these expected purposes, clap or kiss the computer. And if not, write us a damning email. I guess then we're going to get a lot of damning emails. Okay, yeah, very good. Any questions about the content we covered so far tonight? Great. Bill, you're on.
Yes.